G'day everyone, welcome back to Bulwarks and Bulldust. Today we are here at the newly rebranded GC Sales with Joel Turner. Welcome to the show, mate. Let's get him in the chair and have a chat. Welcome back to Bulwarks and Bulldust, and today we've got Joel Turner from the recently rebranded GC Sales. Welcome to Season 2 of Bulwarks and Bulldust, Joel.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Let's start off with a bit of a chat. We've both obviously grown up at Southport Yacht Club. Let's have a bit of a chat about the early days. What was your first boat?
The Micron 3.3, which was it's like a small version of a laser. I'm pretty sure my old man saw it on the side of the road and paid $400 or something for it, and that was when I decided to sort of get into sailing because my father was a sailor. And then I decided that I wanted to go and try and race it. And so went out and did a lap of Crab Island. And then one thing led to another and decided to start racing properly. And that was when I got into the Sabo class, which was pretty big back in the day when I was a kid. And then after that, sort of then started to progress down the skiff pathway.
Sure. And what was the boat that you first made the Australian team in?
The 29er. So, progressed from the Sabo into the 29er. Raced that with a couple of other local sailors that I'd also grown up boating with. And then with Tom Saganto, we represented Australia at the Youth Worlds when I was 17. That was then my last year in the 29er, and then sort of naturally progressed then into the 49er.
And what was the plan when you got into the 49er? Were you thinking about the Olympics at that point in time?
Yeah. So the Olympic dream was something that started when I was about 14 or so. Yep. Sort of grew up following any kind of sport and still do, and decided that once I realised that sailing was a sport in the Olympics, I thought that was a pretty cool pathway to go down. And when I was a kid, I was thinking, how cool would it be to be able to go and race sailing boats around the world? And then lo and behold, I've managed to do that for the following 15 years and hopefully furthermore down the track as well.
You've had some pretty phenomenal coaches over the years. Obviously, you've had Shane Smith, was probably the one that really got you moving. Yeah,
Shane played an enormous role in my whole sailing career right from the first day of sailing a Sabo to most of the way through my 49er campaign as well. He took me through the 29er pathway and coached us to our first Australian representative team, and then got us into the Queensland Academy of Sport, which was supporting the Australian sailing team, and coached me a long way through that as well. So he's played an enormous role as both like a mentor and coach. And then within the Australian sailing team, we were coached for a fair few years by Emmett Lazic, who coached, I think it's 4 Olympic medals. And then we also had the likes of Ewan McNichol, and then we had a few different coaches towards the end of my career as well. So it was really cool to experience a number of different coaches who have all had vast experience.
Yeah, you had a couple of royalty in there as well, especially towards that end of your cycle. And indeed, when I met you, and that would be Chris Nicholson and of course the great Ian Murray. I mean, in skiff areas, whether it's 505 or 49ers or indeed, of course, the 18s, there's some pretty big names in there.
Yeah, it was awesome. So we actually got the opportunity to be coached by Nico after we lost a coach for a period of time, and he seemed to be kind of just lazing around Lake Macquarie for a little bit, and so we approached him and got him involved, and he was awesome to work with. He brought a whole different mentality to our campaign. You know, someone who's done a number of Volvo Ocean races brought a level of toughness to our squad and introduced us to a whole new light. So that was really cool. And yeah, obviously big fella played a big part in our campaigns as well for a period of time, where he was the performance director for the Australian sailing team. Ian's done a huge amount of sailing and been successful in just about everything he's attacked. So yeah, having those people involved and sort of learning off them, I just loved it. Loved all of that part of it and meeting different people.
So, I mean, you talk about your coaches, and obviously you've come through with a bunch of experience now, and we'll talk more about what you've been doing recently shortly. But obviously you've got that role now, you've got that that status now, that to be a mentor and to be a coach to these younger kids coming through? I mean, do you see yourself in that role going forwards?
Yeah, I've always sort of done a little bit of coaching along the way because I think it's just a pretty easy thing to do when you're involved and in the sport. And I've got like a pretty large passion for particularly the local sailors here on the Gold Coast. So I got quite involved with a number of the sort of teenagers that are sort of at the stage of progressing into the skiff, down the skiff pathway. It's really enjoyable trying to have like a little bit of an impact in that and give back a little bit to help those kids towards their goals and help them figure out what their goals are as well.
So without sounding too controversial about it, do you feel like that we as a club, Southport Yacht Club, or even Australian Sailing, are we doing a good enough job at providing the pathways through for young kids coming through these days? And feel free to be fairly raw here, because this is what we're here to do. We're here to improve.
Yeah. I think I feel the sailing pathway for juniors into Olympic classes, it gets lost a lot through participation. I think at club level, there's obviously kind of naturally, and maybe it's fair so, that participation is of a high importance. But I think at the end of the day, every yacht club and state program and national program, at the end of the day, if the priority is sport and the Olympic sport side of it, I think the yacht clubs particularly can sort of push that pathway a little bit more. I think that the clubs really enjoy just having numbers there and kids going out and having fun, which is awesome. And that's where a lot of, I guess, big boat sailors come from as well. But when the Australian Sailing Team and Australian Sailing sort of Federation have a really strong background and history in the Olympic sport, I think they have a duty to keep upholding that. And I think that's getting lost a little bit through sort of fun and participation, which may sound kind of wrong as well, but at the same time, yeah, I think the Australian sporting history is too strong of a foundation to lose.
Yeah, sure. And I think, straight comparison with New Zealand, I think New Zealand has a bit more defined way of bringing young kids through, and it seems to be better from a transitioning into that real performance region. But anyway, look, so improvements to be made.
Yeah,
and,
sure, always.
I think you're probably a figurehead for that going forwards, mate. So.
I was wondering about some of the young people that get involved. There'll be a lot of young people listening to this vodcast, and how do we encourage those people that maybe their parents haven't sailed or no one in the family sailed, but what are the benefits of sailing? I'd be keen to hear your thoughts around the individual and the team sort of building. It's obviously, we know it's a terrific sport, but what can we say to those that haven't experienced it before, and how can we encourage them to get involved?
I think maybe one thing that gets lost a little bit in the benefits to competitive sailing, or really probably any competitive sport, is just the life skills that it teaches you. Like, I think any professional athlete in any sport eventually leaves sport with a huge range of skills that you can then take into business or managing family and relationships or whatever it might be, because you get literally trained in that sport to problem solve. You're motivated, you're finding ways of maintaining motivation and things like that. And so all of the skills that you learn just help you through life, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Working as an individual and also within a team, lots of life skills there.
Yeah.
Which Olympics were you actually aiming for? You're 26 now, is that right?
No, I'm 30 now.
30?
Okay,
sorry,
there you go. Wrong, didn't I? Yeah, stitch you up there.
Somebody might have to call Bulldust on my ability to judge people's
Watch
age.
out for that hospital pass.
So 30. So you started chasing the Olympic dream, I think you said at around 14?
Yeah. So the first kind of Olympic campaign I was involved in was for Rio 2016 Olympics. There was kind of a four-way battle for that within the Australian 49er squad. And then the next serious campaign for me was 2020 for Tokyo, in which we lost. So only one boat gets to go per country in sailing. So only one 49er team gets to qualify, and we came second in the qualification. And then the campaign after that was for Paris 2024, in which I actually threw the towel in just before the end of the qualifying for that. So that was where the whole kind of thing sort of flipped for me.
Right. I was going to ask you a little bit about that. I've had a few mates that have gone through different sports heading for the Olympics, and it's a bit of a cliff that you come off at the end of it. When do you know the right time to kind of pull the pin and say enough's enough? Do you just know it in your heart, or you're just not in it, or it's sort of a bit more like a business decision, or how does that look?
I don't know if you'll ever think you nail the right time. Like I have a lot of good friends that are professional athletes in other sports as well, and I don't think anyone comes out thinking that they really nailed the timing. Some people retire from sport at the top after a massive win. Some people retire after a massive loss, and some people will retire somewhere in the middle. And I think it's always challenging, because you kind of, after such a long period of time of chasing something, eventually the motivation is going to die off. For some people, that's not until they're 80. Like you see some seriously old athletes in a number of sports. But for some people, it just becomes a matter of realization about what's important. That's what it was for me. For a long time, I was chasing the Olympic dream that I founded as a child. And then after a certain amount of time of not succeeding as well as I'd hoped, eventually I just came to a realization that it's not the only thing in life. And a bunch of other things became more important to me. For example, spending more time on the Gold Coast, where I love being at home on the Gold Coast, and I don't think I'll ever leave. And I wasn't getting to be here very much. And every time I would go away, come home, I think, why the hell do I leave? Because this place is pretty bloody good. So yeah, I don't think there will ever be a perfect time to call it quits, but I definitely wasn't going to do it without kind of being prepared for that. I was fortunate enough to be ready to jump into a position with a company here on the Gold Coast, and I wasn't going to retire from sailing if I didn't have that already lined up. So in terms of transition, that was pretty easy for me.
Like forward planning and I guess that mental toughness, I mean, it comes from the sport, it comes from your history and competition. You know, you got to take the rough with the smooth, don't you? And that's one of those life skills that you talk about. You know, you don't get a medal just for participating. You're out there fighting to get a win or a place. So it's the old rules apply, but that builds up that resilience. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just realism, to be honest, as well. Like eventually you got to realise that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And that's sort of the way it felt for me a little bit towards the end of my career, and thought enough's enough. And I had other things that I could go and do that were going to be motivating and interesting for me. So that was what I went. Who
mentors you? You have a mentor now?
I would say a number of people in the business world is now, because that's my current journey. And when I was an athlete, it was athletes that were kind of my mentors. And nowadays there's a few people in particular, whenever I have an issue or a question, I just ring them up. And I think having those kind of relationships is really important, because otherwise you're just bumbling your way through by yourself. I've always been a believer that the easiest and quickest way to learn is off someone else's mistakes. So why try to do it alone when you can try to sort of build your own little community and figure it out that way?
A bit of a shout out to your parents and your family unit right now, mate. I know you come from a very strong little family unit there, and I know your parents have been very, very supportive of you through the journey as well. So bit of a shout out to them.
I guess one thing I'd like to ask on the back of that is, skiffies make better sailors. Just ask one. Oh, we've got one on the program today. Are skiffies better sailors?
I'm not even going to touch that.
Okay, all right. Well, but on the back of that, though, one of your comments was that, you know, there are a lot of great skills that you learn from your sailing to take into life, and that is actually very true. And I've enjoyed that across a number of sports myself as well. But I really appreciate that point. But when you think about it, the skiff program, skiff racing, incredibly fast, obviously. They're called the quicks for a reason. And the racing's dynamite, one mistake, snakes and ladders, by a factor of probably, 10 or 20. You're the skiff sailor, you tell me. When you look back on it now, that motivation and skill level and also experience set, you get to apply that now into all those other lives and all these other people. Are there some things that you've learned by virtue of a strong program, which Australia is known for, a strong sailing program? Are there things that you would immediately use as your go-to items, I guess, when you're looking for things to explain to people, motivate people, or motivate yourself?
No, I think maybe even the opposite to a degree, where I think it's always about the big picture and the whole picture, and trying to have coverage over a range of topics. So, for example, like if we use a sailing example and you're struggling to get to the top mark in the top 5, you can't just look at your boat speed, and you can't just look at your tactics, and you can't just look at your boat handling, but it's always going to be a multitude of things. It might be the communication on the boat. I think trying to have a lot of the time we try to find the silver bullet, and I don't think, I assume in the business world and throughout life as I age, I don't want to be looking for a silver bullet, and trying to have kind of a strong foundation amongst all of the areas is going to be a better way to approach things.
The devil's in the details, right? Whether it be business or whether it be competitive sailing.
You're talking about the 1%ers, or are we less than 1%ers now? We're talking half a percenters, 0.1 of a percenters.
Some of them could be the 0.1s, I think. Yeah, not one, move the decimal place. But I really hear you on that, and thank you for drawing that out, because that's really, I think that the fantastic thing is take your lessons, and obviously having that support group that you laugh with. Lucky to have a couple here with me, but also then the ability to joust in part but bounce off in part, and also seek wisdom from. And I guess that's what you're sort of saying, you have that across multiple areas.
Yeah, for sure. Like as I've come into the business world, and like we touched on, I've had a couple of people that I lean on for information and mentorship, and I feel like it's one of those things in life and in sport. If you go and talk to someone and they'll say, or you might talk to an older guy and he'll say, I'll give you the number one tip to so-and-so, and he'll say it. And my perspective is, I'm sure that's not the only thing that made you successful. Like it might be something that was important to you and might have given you motivation to go and cover all the areas, but I don't think there's ever going to be just one silver bullet.
Absolutely.
I assume.
Absolutely. Resilience is an amazing thing and never gets taught. Spoken about a little bit, but never gets taught.
And we've all had those red hot tips at the track, and I haven't retired yet. So
Yeah. Red hot tips at the bar usually too. Just ask anyone.
So your mentoring program, is that is sort of a rigid framework, or is it something that you're taking on? So with the sailing, with the youth coming through, is that sort of KPIs and very formalised, or is it something that you're just doing that's a little bit more social at the moment?
Yeah, it's a pretty unofficial thing. There's just like a couple of kids that I've done some coaching for, and then after building that relationship, just sort of built a naturally trustworthy relationship where if they are chasing some advice around something, I sort of explain to them my take on my opinion of the situation, and maybe try and teach them some skills of whatever they're trying to learn along the way. And yeah, I think just the small bits of advice along the way can make a big difference.
Absolutely, it must give you a buzz as well. And
it keeps
see
me
the
active
progression
in the sport as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was doing a bit of coaching with the 49er boys in the QAS team, and that sort of kept me and kept my brain on and in the high performance space. Whereas if I wasn't doing that and I'm just living this sort of business life, I feel it'd be easy to drop the ball and lose the skills a little bit. So I'm really keen to stay involved, just to stay present and current.
And you don't know where that next person coming through, where that pivotal point, that tipping point is for them to continue on with something that becomes quite serious and life-changing as well, as happened to you. So, and your involvement in that has a real impact in their lives and in their future.
Yeah, I guess so. Like everyone develops their own opinions at the end of the day, but the more that they hear or can see reality around them, hopefully they end up making the right decisions, I guess.
Well, let's touch on his current sailing at the moment.
Oh, well, that's right, because it's not purely coaching and mentoring the 49ers. I mean, only a couple of years ago, you're on board as URM, charged away, and you nearly got there, but we'll take second. Yeah. Still got some motivation to get to first.
Oh, I'd love to be involved in some more of those high performance racing programs on big boats towards the Hobart and things like that. I'm not currently involved in any of the big boats heading south this year, but like I said, staying current and present in the high performance part of the sport is something I'm quite passionate about. So if that means I can end up getting myself on a decent boat for a ride south, then I'll take it. But yeah, the coming second in that year in the Hobart really hurt when we were cruising down the river in 7 knots of breeze, and then a live came down behind us, reaching along with a reef in and a bro, and doing 4 times our boat speed, and took 30 minutes out of our time. So that hurt a little bit, but I mean, at the end of the day, the sitting in Hobart isn't the be-all and end-all for me. It's just sort of part of the journey, so we'll see what happens.
I mean, the other thing is clearly you're pretty handy with a tiller in your hand and obviously a wheel by extension. But when you get to be on board as a driver, that's always a great feeling. But I think we were talking a little bit earlier about the complexities of operating a bigger machinery rather than a 2-person or 3-person skiff. You've got incredible loads in all of the strings and gear braking and human braking capability literally just around the corner. How much fun have you had taking your skills from the smaller boats and applying them into the bigger boats?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. When I got involved with URM, I was first just a driver, which was awesome because I stepped on and just got to sail this cool boat and steer the thing to Hobart. But the following year I was in a trimming role, and the principles of trimming a sail are always the same. It's all the same stuff, just way bigger and then way more complex. And all of a sudden, instead of just having one spinnaker sheet, you might have 3 or 4 sails out the front of the boat. So you've got tweakers as well. All of a sudden you've got 6 winches that are loaded trimming your sails. And obviously you're not going to do it by yourself. So there's a team of you involved, and it's really just a logistical program is what I learned. I was pretty green on the boat as a trimmer, but pretty quickly I learned that a lot of it is just about logistics and communication and getting the team to work together and figure things out kind of on the run a lot of the time. There's a lot more to it than just how to get the telltales to flow backwards.
Yeah, but it's a good place to be when they look gorgeous, that's for sure. However, also recently, you've gone back to the skiff world, and who doesn't love an 18? I mean, even from early age, anybody, just goes, wow, check those things out. You've gone back onto Shore and Partners, probably in a supervisory maintenance capacity, as well as onboard skills coach and a whole bunch of other things, and the results came with it. Can you tell us a little bit about the 18s program and obviously directly Shoreham, please?
So I basically just got a phone call from one of the guys down there one day asking if I was available during the JJ's period, and I was. And I mean, my body isn't quite as mobile as it was 2 years ago when I was sailing, but I like to think I'm still fit enough to stay on the boat and get from side to side. So yeah, I jumped on with the Shore and Partners with Emma Rankin and Brandon Byink, who were sailing together most of the year, and Emma was running the boat for the whole 2 years. And they were awesome for me to jump on with, and we did one training session the day before the JJs. So we didn't have a lot of preparation, but The whole goal of that was for me to step on and kind of try to share a little bit of knowledge, because I've obviously spent time as a full-time sailor and those two haven't, but they've got amazing skills in the 18. So I was able to jump in pretty easily, and the boat went, better than it had before.
Pretty bloody well.
Yeah. And
Significantly better, I think we might go with.
I like to always say to people, again, across different sports, like, it's never about one person, whether it's a 2-person team or a 20-person team. It's never about one person. My girlfriend competes in surfboat rowing, and it's a 4-person team, and they were rowing that 5-person team. Yeah, sorry, and they were racing with a 2-time Olympian in the middle of their boat, and then all of a sudden they were producing these results, but at the same time, one person isn't going to pick up the slack of 4 others, if you know what I mean. So. On the Shoring Partners, I just got to jump in there, and we got a good result, which was really fun, and I think the sponsors enjoyed it and the club enjoyed it. So I enjoyed stepping on the boat, and got me a little bit more interested in, I guess, the sail package on the 18s as well. So we're trying to do a little bit more of looking into that to see how we can help in that department as well, business-wise.
Really interesting. A couple of times during the conversation today, you've been talking with us a little bit about comms, and they are very, very interesting. We've, as a group, often spoke about the fact that quiet boats are good, but too quiet's too quiet, too noisy's too noisy. So it is a very delicate balance to find, and Foghorn Leghorn here hasn't ever had a problem being heard on board, even in 50 knots. But, Lee's pretty good as well, shall we say. But comms is much more than just being heard. It's actually getting the people to think and look and obviously coordinate. There's that logistics package as well. What are your thoughts on the greater communication on board discussion, please?
I think it's typically the number one cause to any success or anything going well. As soon as there's more than one person involved in any situation, you'd like, in my eyes, you'd like packages, whether it be a sailboat racing team or a business, to be working as if it's one person. But obviously that's nearly impossible to get it to happen. So I think that the really good communicators are clear and concise, and they can get points across and get things to happen. Meanwhile, the culture is still good as well through the communication. So that's one of the things I try to do when I'm sailing on yachts these days. If I'm kind of a key communicator on board, my goal is for everyone to enjoy the communication so that they can receive it, and then the communication to be accurate enough that they can then do the task that has been asked of them to do, or whatever it may be.
Great stuff. Yes, I think that's a really pertinent sort of aspect. You've got to be not just heard, listened to. Very big differences between
people
those
have got to
two.
want to listen to you as well, right? I think that's the biggest thing. I think we've all sailed on boats where it's a little bit there's a bit of a dictator on board, and you don't really want to listen to that person. So I think it's really important going forwards that and you are one of those communicators that people want to engage with you on the boat. I think that's really important.
I think that's true. If you set it up the wrong way, it's never going to happen.
Oh, the old school stuff was the quicker you wanted it done, the louder you screamed and the more you swore.
Yeah.
And it usually works the opposite. It takes longer for it to happen then.
Yeah. And the bigger the disaster too, usually.
Yeah.
So currently, back into small business, you've obviously bought now into, you've got a very experienced business partner, and obviously bought an established business with, it must be close to 40 years of history behind it. So that's exciting, and obviously new branding.
Yeah. So we're pretty excited that this is kind of the new journey for Kadrick and myself. Kadrick got involved, I think about 12 years ago now, and I was sort of dabbling in sail making. It was mostly shade sails when I first started, so that was pretty fun.
I remember the days next door. Yeah.
Then Kadrick's been there for quite a long time and is sort of obviously a qualified sailmaker and has been doing it for 20 years or so, whereas I'm coming from a sailing background, not a sail-making background. And it's turned out that our partnership works really well together because Kadrick has the experience in making a quality sail and providing good product, whereas I come at it from a more so the customer's perspective of using the sails, knowing what I want to see when I'm on the boat, knowing how I want it to be used, and making things user friendly as well as look good in the air for a fair price is basically what we're trying to achieve. And I just think that in the industry at the moment, there's probably a little bit of a lack of good customer service along with a good product. I feel like there's opportunities where you can go and buy the Ducks Nuts product for a very high price and maybe lacking some service. And so we're basically trying to give a very personal experience when you come to us and purchase some sails. We want it to be a personal experience, enjoyable, easy, and at a fair price. We just want to be kind of the sail makers that the customers think of having a really good experience with.
Yeah, nice. Well, looking forward to seeing you guys try and take it to the big boys, and you alluded to a couple of opportunities you've got coming up, so excited to see that. Thanks again, Joel Turner, for being on Bulwarks and Bulldust.
No worries, thank you.
Remember, like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Your support means everything to us. See you next time on Bulwarks and Bulldust.
So it was great hearing about this incredible business with 40 years of history, and it was great having Joel Turner on the show. Thanks so much, mate, for coming on board. Here's your hat, and we look forward to hearing a heap more about GC Sails over the next coming years.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. Much appreciated.